Hi, Andrew Goode from Dolphin and Marketing Ability. A short video for the attendees at the CIM Bedfordshire and Hertfordshire Writing for the Web session that Richard Grooms from PDF Copywriting Bureau and Marketing Ability and myself ran yesterday. I promised to give you some additional content that I thought had come out of Richard's really interesting first session. So I've got 16 little points I just thought it was worthwhile capturing to go through, and we include these in the additional documentation and slide notes that we send through to you. One of the first points I thought was really important that we need to come out was actually looking at what are your objectives of what you're writing for. Richard came up with some brilliant content about how to improve what you're writing, but I think it's really important we take it back to the first step that says, you know, if we're writing for the web, what do we want that copy to do? Are we looking for click-throughs? Are we looking to take people to more information? Are we looking for linkage? Are we looking to just show that we're an authority person on that content? So point number one, you know, what are the objectives of your writing? I think that's an important point. The next point is, what's the value of the information that you're creating? You know, is it information, is it hints, is it guidance, checklist? Is it copy that will help them move on to the next stage? And I'm going to touch on this whole point of this customer journey as we're writing for the web. But I wanted to just make sure that when you're thinking about this writing, is it actually strengthening your relationship and building authority? I think that's a very important pointer. Because then that helps to actually think about our both SEO and our web development, and making sure the great content we produce actually is going to be able to work. Richard touched on it and we covered it, and we looked at this whole issue about B2C, B2B, and the issue of emotion and making sure that the tone of voice, the way that we work, the way that we word actually is engaging with our customer. And I often say to companies, you know, the customer is finding you, if they're using search, they're finding you for either two reasons. Pain, how do I overcome, how do I find a provider of, how do I find a product that will? There's a pain that needs to be resolved. Or they're looking for, you know, for pleasure, you know, how can I have a better experience? So emotion works equally as well at B2B as it does B2C, and don't be afraid of trying to engage with that customer. One of the things that hopefully came out of the session was that we've got to be really clear on message, and better to, you know, niche segmentation, to niche down your market and try and make sure that your message is on target to the person that you're trying to communicate with, and that you need different messages for different segments. Classic marketing, but think about that within your writing. Do we need to have different levels of information, different content for different people? Something we didn't have a great deal of chance to talk through, but which is, I believe, is really important, especially when writing for the web, is identifying at what stage your customer is in their buying process. You know, we can't just have a page that starts with "buy my stuff," because if the customer is at the very early stage of trying to put together, trying to identify a solution that might be appropriate to them, they need to perhaps, you know, why would I buy from you? I need to understand, you know, what my problem is, what are some of the options available, etc. So we need to actually help them on their customer journey. So at the very early stage, they might just be looking for information, for help, for guidance. So we need to work out, you know, where is the customer within that buying process. One of the points that came out, and I think Richard identified really well, was that, you know, creating pages that actually says, this page is for you if you are looking for. Therefore, at a very early stage, the reader knows, oh, right, this content is fantastic, I'm this kind of person, the segmentation kicks in, this content is going to be relevant to me. It makes it very easy to have on-target copy. If we're going to put copy together, there's actually never been a better time to put together great content. Google and all the changes it's making is looking for unique content. The days of just cutting and pasting other people's content and putting them into your site, essentially duplicate content, will be, I think, drawing to an end. And if you can write great content that carries authority, that has linkage with it, that can achieve page rank, that content is the sort of material that Google is looking for. So, creating unique, good content will actually both help you in your sales process and help you create authority on the web. One of the really interesting things I thought came out of yesterday's session with Richard was he had a slide where he was talking about formatting. So Richard had actually created a slide where there was a red box around some text, and that text he'd highlighted. Now actually, as soon as you saw that text in the red box, you immediately thought, wow, that's the first thing I'm drawn to. Didn't look particularly sophisticated, didn't look particularly stylish, but my golly, were your eyes drawn to that really powerful single red line around the text. So think about, what can you do to actually help in that formatting process. One of the points that came out was also, do we write first person, third person? That debate is a very long debate, and I'm not the best person to comment on that. People like Richard can better comment on that. The one thing that I would say when I read customers' websites is that quite often they end up weeing on the customer. And I would always say, don't wee on the customer. Better to think about the customer as a you, and if you can engage with the customer as opposed to weeing on them, that's better. Enough said. Richard raised a really good point about error messages and how on syntax coding, etc., we end up with, there are ways that you can improve that customer experience. I think the same is true, we didn't have a chance to touch on it at all, with thank you pages. Quite often, if you've managed to get the customer to sign up for a newsletter or to sign up for a download, whatever it might be, we just end up with a really simple email back thank you. Well, what a great opportunity to actually customize that message and start using your brand personality within that thank you message. And that's something that hopefully we'll touch on at a future event. I guess with one of the key bits that comes out of whatever content we're producing, let's make it memorable. We got a show of hands within the room, 36 companies, and we asked the question, who here hasn't got a competitor? No surprise, absolutely everybody is in an industry, a sector, a service or charity where there is lots and lots of competition. So therefore, what is it you're going to do to make your content memorable? Again, we looked at the whole issue of formatting and how to make it better, but not actually looking in the content generation. Again, that's something that perhaps we can cover in a future video, perhaps. One of the things that came out was that writing for the web is different to print. And one of the key things in which it's different is the fact that you can get the web page to do things. Suddenly you can use a video. What if a video explains in 20 seconds what you're going to have to communicate in 1,000 words? Let's actually go for the video. Can we use interactive charts or diagrams? Can we have images? And suddenly it's not just a static image, it's an image we can perhaps zoom in on. So there's fantastic opportunity to use other media that the customer is going to engage with within your content to actually give that customer that memorable experience and help them on their customer journey. Richard raised the point about there are different levels of reader. Is it the scan reader, and Richard had a really good process of perhaps bolding the first few words of each sentence, so that the scan reader can just scan 4 or 5 words of each sentence and essentially get the context of what you're trying to communicate in order to take action. A very difficult task, and that's where somebody like Richard comes on board, because obviously if they're scanning it, it's no good having copy that doesn't have a flow to it. But then you might have a customer who is going to want a little bit more information, therefore we need to give them more copy, through to a customer who's perhaps at the point of looking to make a decision, where we need detailed content that's actually going to help them complete the buying process. Another observation from the session we ran yesterday was we didn't actually look at approaches to creating or generating copy for the web. I know that's something that Richard does in terms of, because that writer's block scenario, but there are some approaches that can be adopted to make it easier to help write some content that it will have very good SEO potential. What we'll probably do is, because that's a subject in its own right, probably in future Marketing Booster, Marketing Ability and Blue Dolphin newsletters, will include some various techniques and tips for creating good SEO content for the web. We touched on, in a small way, some of the eye tracking techniques to identify where people look on the web and read on the web. One of the things that perhaps we didn't touch on, and I know somebody in the audience was interested in it, was bounce rates. At what point of the article that you're writing are customers leaving? Where are we getting the bounce? What's the information point at which the customer leaves that page or leaves that website? How much of that, you've spent hours, days creating a great article, are customers landing on it and leaving after a couple of seconds? Really, really important that we track using analytics, the pages and the content that people are viewing. You might think it's a great article, worthy, but if your visitors to the site aren't reading it, then perhaps we need to look at, does it need tweaking? Does the headline need improving? Do we need this article is suitable for those people looking to help them get readers engaged with it? So tracking, really, really important. And finally, my final observation from the session was, are we actually clear about what we're offering and what we want the customer, the user, the visitor to do as a result of landing on the page? In so many cases I see people who are writing almost as if it's a print document, where they can put a telephone number on the bottom of the page, but it's quite passive, when in fact if we're writing for the web and if we're looking at SEO, we can actually start to make our articles do things, so that article actually has a purpose and has a strong call to action. And I think that's a really important point, and that's something that we can perhaps provide some examples of how to improve the offer, and then how to improve the action that your customer might take as a result of it. This is Andrew Goode of Blue Dolphin Business Development and Marketing Ability. Hopefully some additional content to help those attendees at the Writing for the Web CIM course that we ran on Saturday. Get some more value from that presentation. If you need more information, you can always check out www.bdolphin.co.uk and find out some more free content and information to help companies market. Thank you very much for watching this video. See you on the other side.